Hey, it's Brock here with Rock Hill Farm, and today we're going to do some brush cutting with this gigantic Farmry flail mower. This thing really is enormous. It has a cut width of 79 inches, but the actual unit itself is 88 inches. Now, I was not planning to show any of the setup. I was going to start the video with this already on the tractor, but I had to stop myself because I'm just blown away by the crate this came in. You know, running this channel, I receive all kinds of equipment. Like all the time, I'm receiving stuff in, and I've never seen anything in a metal frame like this that was so well built. Like, they invested money into this hardware and building this up the right way so it didn't get damaged in shipping. That's heavy duty. That's impressive. And, you know, if you're buying a flail mower, you're not buying a crate, you're buying the mower. But I always think about, you know, when a company does the little things well, they probably do the big things well also. And that's been the case with all the packaging on this Farmry stuff. Anyway, I'm going to get this thing set up, and then I'll give you a summary of if there's anything else you need to know about it. Here's the basics. It is model number HF379. It weighs 660 kilograms, which is like 1,400 pounds. Retail price on this flail mower is $4,400. Previously, I showed a smaller Farmry flail mower that was only like $2,500 maybe. But when you get into the big ones, that price starts to come up a little bit. But that's still a great price on a cutter that size. And because I'm sponsored by Farmry, they've provided me with a discount code. If you're going to place an order, you can save a little bit of money by using my discount code, which will be in the video description. So let me get this thing on the tractor and I'll be right back. So I didn't mention much about this mower, but it does have a hydraulic offset. So I just mounted this cylinder here and mounted the other end there, and this hydraulically slides on this bar. So you can see right now the cutting edge would be offset from this tire by maybe 6 inches. I shifted this all the way each direction, and I think this mower, it's not there at the moment, but I think this has the capability of having more offset than any of the other flail mowers I've used. Now, I am concerned about the extreme driveline angle that it will have while it is offset, but that is essentially unavoidable. There's not much you can do about that. So what I would say is, if you want to offset to get up against a fence row, do it. But don't just set your mowing pattern up to say, I'm going to mow the entire field with the offset because I like the way the tires line up while I'm driving. I wouldn't do that because you're just going to wear out your drive line. So we've got a kickstand. The thing's super heavy duty. We've got grease zerks here for the drum and here for the back roller. On this side, belt shiv has a grease zerk. There's a grease zerk. This thing is belt driven, which means you don't need a shear bolt or a slip clutch. Shear bolts and slip clutches exist so that you have something that will slip when you get in a bind. Belts that are driven with the teeth, now if you look at it through here, you've got 4 belts that drive this. The other one I have is belt driven as well. I was actually mowing with it and I got a chunk of firewood jammed in there and the belt slipped and I shut it off and freed it up and it didn't break anything. So all good. Oh, this has some kind of a cutting edge up here. I've never seen that. I don't know exactly what that is meant to do, as it's permanently attached there. It can't move. So maybe if this grabs material and pulls it up, it kind of cuts it as it goes to keep it from getting clogged. I don't know what that does. This has hammer blades. This is my 4th flail mower I've had, and all 4 of them used hammer blades. I've never used a V-blade or whatever the name is for that fork blade, but those are for more fine finish and this is for heavier material, which they didn't ask me which one I wanted, but this is what I would have picked if they had asked me. I did another video on just about how to set this up. What you want is it to be at an angle where this roller sets on the ground and these shoes are either just touching or just slightly off the ground. That kind of levels you out. And then with it at that angle, these are not touching the ground. They're just a little bit up. And the back roller is adjustable between these holes so that you can accomplish that for different setups. And the reason you might have some variation there is the length and height of your 3-point lift arms. You've got chains on the front to keep it from throwing material. The mower came with extra blades because it's not like a mower where all the blades get dull and need sharpened at about the same rate. With this, you can hit something right here and bust 2 blades completely and the others are fine. But it came with some extras. As I said, this is my 4th flail mower, and they were not all from this brand. I've ran other brands, and to me, it's a high build quality at a lower price. I think it's a great value. So check out the video description if you want to look at some of the products that Farmry has to offer. Now, up here, we have a reversible pin. This is a category 1 pin. But if this is a category 2 tractor, I flip that pin around and put it through the lower hole, and it's a category 2 pin. So it's good to have that versatility. We also have the slot in the top here, and that is kind of a float function. It's like a mechanical built-in float. So as we said, we've got this angle here, and if it goes over a bump, the back of that can kind of raise up as the pin slides in that gap, and that keeps you from, smashing down into something as hard. For maintenance, you can pull the bolts out here and lift this up. You can also, if you don't want this to be able to side shift, you've got pinholes here and a pinhole here, so you can slide it to where you want and then pin it in place. Farmry HFS S79, weight 1,292 pounds, so that 1,400 pounds must have included the crate. Year 2025. Now here's the material we're going to be cutting. It's a mix of all kinds of weeds and thorns and a little bit of everything. So here we've got some Johnson grass that I'm over 6 foot tall. So this weed is about 5 foot tall. And most of it's like this. There's a big drop off right here. This is a pretty steep hill that you can't really see. There's a junk pile over there. There's a mud hole down there. There's some really rough spots down there where it's uneven, and sometimes there's standing water. There's a lot to navigate around. So this part we're mowing right here is basically what cannot be cut for hay. I do hay up to right here on that field, and then I stop and I cut the rest of this with a brush cutter or a flail mower. All right, so let's see how it cuts. All right, so let's take a look at those driveline angles. We set down there. It's pretty level. You're gonna shut the cutter off if you go up much higher than this. Then it'll shift. That's as far that way as it will shift. And then it'll shift the other way, which has us sticking out about a foot past this tire. There is no way to set up a camera that's going to show this, but mowing this is pretty intense because you can't tell, like that's a huge drop off right there. And you can't tell when you're hitting some of these drop offs. There's a huge drop off over there. This is a big mud hole. So it's a tough area to mow. That's why I don't do it as often. I need to tame it down and keep it mowed better. Anyway, let's get back to it. That was a mud hole that I was splashing through on the Bighorn last time. Leaves a nice clean cut, but I have to go pretty slow because this tractor is towards the bottom of the horsepower range for this cutter, and it feels to me like it would do a lot better on this thick material with a little more horsepower. It's a really cool piece of the property. Got all these low-hanging limbs. It's not cool to maintain, but if you wanted to do a photo shoot or, you know, go for a walk and just enjoy nature, like, this is cool. Now, during the wet season, it kind of floods over here, and we got a little, like, dry branch of a creek almost. Like here, at some point right over here, there's a drop off, and obviously I want to stay out of that. If you look at that though, it's a lot better cut than you would get with a traditional brush cutter. It's a better cut, but in this case, it's also, who cares really, right? But I'm trying to show pros and cons because different people have different applications and care about different things. Always keep in mind with the flail mower, they continue to run for a long time after you shut it off. So you gotta wait on it. I hit an old tire that was buried over there, which sucks. Teeth look fine. I don't see anything hung up. I guess we're okay. You might notice that the guard is missing off of the PTO. I did something dumb. I broke it with a hand tool. Cracked it, so I went ahead and took it off. Again, I don't really know the terrain that well. I think it dropped off somewhere around here. Hopefully we'll make it all right. I don't remember what the horsepower rating is on this mower. I'm thinking it might have been like 40 to 80, and I've probably already said it in the video. But this is the first time since I've had the 574 that the PTO struggled to manage something, and I think this is too much cutter for it. Now I have the same brand of cutter sitting right up there that is a little bit smaller cutter, narrower and lighter weight, and I've cut some heavy stuff with that and it was no problem. But with this, and this stuff being really, really thick, I had to go super slow. Now, this brings up the conversation of what is the right application for a flail mower. And this is not it. This is really uneven. I'd like to be backing into a lot of these areas, and a traditional brush cutter is long, and you can back up under trees. Like that whole fence row, you almost have to back into the whole fence row because those branches all overhang. And you can't do that with the flail mower because it's short. So there are applications where I like a flail mower. This spot right here, less so. But if I was going to mow this with the flail mower on this tractor, I'd want a little bit smaller flail mower. Now, I'm not going to finish that, and I have a specific reason. It's because I'm getting ready to have a bigger tractor than this one on the property, and I want to put the same flail mower on the bigger tractor from another brand and run it down there on the same grass, and I'll be doing that soon. Now, I'm thinking I don't know if I'm going to do a second cutting on the property this year for hay. This stuff is reasonably tall, so I might be able to. If I was going to mow this entire field, flail mower is great for that. Down in that valley where it's so rough, I think I'd pick a traditional brush cutter. So let's see how this cuts on more of a normal grass field. Like this stuff is between knee high and waist high, but it's not so crazy thick like what we've got down there. And I always thought when I got my first tractor, I went out and cut this property that was overgrown with these big saplings. I thought, oh man, those saplings are gonna bog down the tractor. Not so much. Honestly, cutting through thick brush and saplings, it's like that stuff's more brittle and it shreds easier. But this tall grass, like when I was mowing what looks like a hay field, but the grass is really tall and thick, you bog a tractor down faster on that stuff. But let's see how it does out here. So the way this works is sometimes I email a company and ask them to send me something. Sometimes a company like Farmry sends me an email, says, hey, can we send you this flail mower? And I looked at it and I said, man, that might be too big for my tractor, but I've got some other use cases for it. So I said, yeah, send it out. Let's find out if that's too big. I want to know. And down there, it seemed too big. Up here, it didn't. Now, I keep saying cut quality. Look, it's all up in the air. You care, you don't. It's a brush cutter. Who cares? Maybe you do. Maybe you want to mow. So I've got a section from my house to my pond that I keep mowed, but it's like 3 acres. And be a good candidate to mow with the flail mower. And that, I like to look nice. Now, look at this finished cut. So this is what we're cutting. Pretty tall stuff, right? This is all, I mean, you rake this off, that's almost cut like your lawn, and this is mulched up pretty small, and it doesn't have any windrows. So if you care about that, flail mower is the tool for you. Flail mower or a finish mower, but I don't think a finish mower could go down there and do what this did. So this is kind of like in between a brush cutter and a finish mower. But that's gonna wrap up this demonstration. This is my first use on this. Most of the hours that this thing gets will probably be behind a utility tractor. I appreciate you taking time to watch the video. I'll put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.